So my name's Noel. This is my sister Josefina. She's Down syndrome, and we are both DACA recipients from Argentina. My sister had to have emergency heart surgery when she was about a year old. She's got a scar going down her chest, and it's a common thing with most Down syndrome kids. She's had a couple of situations here and there where she had to be hospitalized. She had pneumonia when she was about, I want to say 10, because of her heart condition and because she's Down syndrome, her immune system is a lot weaker than ours. And also she can't walk that far either. Her heart might get too overwhelmed. There are benefits that she does not qualify for because her social security card says for work authorization only. We can't do anything. We're still living paycheck to paycheck. I'm working and going to school. My dad's also working. It's a tough situation that we're in. Government can't help me out with financial aid. Government can't help her out get all the benefits that she deserves. Like, I don't care if I don't get financial aid. I care more about her getting the right treatments, the right benefits, but it's a part of our day-to-day life at this point.
I actually didn't want to be a doctor for the longest time. It wasn't until my sophomore year at Brown that I kind of started solidifying the idea. And I think for me it was kind of seeing the injustices, and like there's just so many things, it's crazy, that like prevent someone from receiving adequate health care based on their background. And this is across the board too, for individuals who are not undocumented but come from a low socioeconomic status. But being undocumented adds a whole other layer to that issue. I saw family members or friends who were undocumented and were terrified of going to the hospital, even though there was definitely something wrong. And for me, it was just, okay, well, I had the opportunity to, become a doctor and combine my passion for science. I was a biology major, so I always have loved science. To combine my passion my love for science with my passion for working with, my community, right? I didn't get here alone. Like my family is a huge part of it. My community is a huge part of it. I would not be here were it not for like individuals in my undocumented community who still to this day kind of encourage me to go on forward and to occupy spaces where people like us normally don't occupy. I am nothing without my community.
One of my teachers, she recommended me to a program to become a nurse. But when they asked me for that social, I was not able to take it. I remember that I was so heartbroken because I remember that one time I told my counselor that I didn't have documents. And he said, "You're not going to be anybody. You're not going to be nothing. There's nothing out there for you." And I said, Simon, I said, he's wrong. I will show him that I'm somebody, that I'm going to be somebody. And when they gave me that scholarship, I thought that finally I had proven my point, but then I couldn't get it because I did not have those 9 digits.
So when I found out, so I called my mom directly. So my mom cried immediately. And then when I told my dad, he also cried. So immediately it was hard to process because getting into Harvard is one of those things that, so I now know it so much more concretely, what a Harvard education can do for you. But back then, I knew of the idea kind of remotely. I've heard from other people and I've heard from popular culture that going to Harvard opens doors. But at that point, I didn't really know what that would even mean for my life, right? The combination of getting in and then finding out that they would pay whatever demonstrated need, was just really like emotional. So it was a time in my life where I felt like really everything was possible. And it's not like that's not the case now, but that's the first time I felt that way in like my entire life. The idea that I can do whatever interests me and whatever like passions that happen to drive me. Because up to that point, everything was uncertain.
There's several websites that have like, hey, these are the scholarships. It's one of these scholarships that I'd been looking at before, even before like applying for schools. The problem with that is that specifically it says you have to be either Mexican or full-on or just Hispanic on a broader spectrum for most of them. So that was tough because then it's like, so where do I go to find scholarships? Now there's a lot of scholarships for black students, right? But then the scholarships that are there, you have to prove you're a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen. So it's like, if the immigrant scholarships aren't working for me, then I go step back and like, okay, well, I'm a black person, but a lot of people don't see immigration as a black issue. So, and you can see it even with the scholarships, like they're not catering to the people who are black and an immigrant. So it's like, it's a bit frustrating, and it kind of works even hand in hand in just living or even now engaging with people in the immigrant rights movement. People talk this whole like anti-blackness in the immigrant movement, which is legit. We kind of have to force ourselves to be spoken about. It's constantly, this is an issue for Latinx people. And then there's also within black spaces or black American spaces where it's like, well, no, we don't accept immigration isn't an issue for us, right? Yeah, it's definitely a racial justice issue. With the Muslim ban, majority of those countries of now, in whatever round of Muslim ban we're on, they're black countries, African countries. And in fact, black immigrants have a 3 times higher risk of being detained and deported than any other immigrants. So there's already that profiling first because of your color, and then as people dig deeper, it's like, oh, and you're an immigrant, so.
My father's a painter, so I've always been making art, but I started really being intentional about the art that I made this year. A lot of it is protest art about being queer, about being undocumented, about being brown, and then a lot of it is about my mental health, my depression, and my anxiety. I often find myself in an intersection of so many identities that has allowed me to be able to communicate with multiple people and bond with multiple people. My brain almost works that way always, where I'm like translating between cultures, and because I'm always stuck in between cultures, you know. And I think art is such a cool way for 3 things. Like, one, it's like art is a form of communication, and an image really communicates so well, and I sometimes have a hard time articulating what I feel, and especially when I'm in pain, I think it becomes easier for me to communicate through drawing, and it's so therapeutic. And 2, representation matters so much, and being in a community of artists and like creating art that has brown people in it, queer people in it, undocumented people in it, it makes me feel good to like share that, and like hopefully have someone that is undocumented and younger see my art and be like, oh cool, like you're undocumented and queer and like all these things that like I am too, and that's what I always wanted. And lastly, it's cool to document the existence of undocumented people and queer people and black and brown people, and I think I've been able to achieve all those things through my art, or like at least feel like I'm getting close to doing those things with my art. So it's felt very healing for me, and it's allowed me to meet a lot of really cool people and connect with different people.
Oh, are you shy? Are you shy? It's okay. Relax. Oh, there you go.
June 14th.
That's her birthday. Do you like your birthday? Nice.
Alright, I plan on keeping the country designed from its beginnings to keep one of us safe. Wait. Okay, who's gonna read? Yeah.
I'm so done. Okay. The meaning of juxtaposition, the idea of Michael and I. America is not our land. It is not our country. When said, make America great again, they mean make America white again. A slap on the wrist versus a shot in the chest. There is no flow in this free right, but this is the river of our country. I've always been triggered by white people being the spokesperson for our oppression. Give us the mic and let us tell our own story. But I suppose white people will only listen if there's a familiar face. But don't tell our story. It's simple. I wonder how Michael's doing. Chances are Michael is in jail, dead, or still in lower class, and this is based on his disadvantages at birth, a lower class black boy.
I think home necessarily isn't a physical space. It's where I feel comfortable enough to be my whole self, right? I've really struggled with that one, and I'm trying to learn it. But I think learning that is necessary because I have to understand my history of what I'm trying to discover is what was Zambia like before colonization, right? What does it mean to truly be Zambian, right? Because being raised here, America's like, well, we don't want you, and Zambia's like, well, you're not even Zambian. So it's like this in between. So yeah, I don't know.
I definitely understand like people feeling connected to their culture and to the place that they're in, but I think that we live in a world that doesn't necessarily respect that and doesn't respect the earth and kind of just is driven by money, and it's hard to continue respecting the idea of a home being like where you belong or where you're from or where you grew up or whatever it's supposed to mean when we're like find ourselves in a place where a lot of people are displaced from their homes and from their countries and from their families and even from their bodies. So yeah, it feels like a weird, complicated, icky thing. I feel like it's complicated mostly because it's fake, you know, like borders and countries and the idea of like, I guess like nationalism. Part of healing and like coming into myself and learning to like myself and love myself was defining what home was for me, and that really felt like the only thing that I do own is my body. I started getting a lot of tattoos because I love art and I love adorning my body, and I started playing with my haircut, and I started dressing in different ways every day, and I started taking care of my body and, you know, giving it what the love that I would give whatever like a home is. So I think that's what I call home, like just within myself. Yeah.
My mother had, by the time I graduated high school, she got 3 little kids. I have 3 little siblings. It's me, my sister, who came here with her when she was 4 years old. Now she's 26. I'm 32. But then I have 3 siblings. They are 15, 14, 13. So when I graduated high school, they were babies. They were, what, 2, 1, and a couple of months old. So it was difficult. It was difficult to help her raise 3 children with nothing. You know, it got so bad that at some point we were homeless right after high school, probably a month later. The sheriff came and he told us that we had 24 hours to leave the house. And we took whatever we could and we left. So it was difficult, it was hard, knowing that you lost everything, you know. Not that we have much, but I think after that it kind of made me realize that it's difficult to be undocumented, it's difficult to be a woman, it's difficult to be young, it's difficult to not have anything. And I remember I said to myself that that was never going to happen to me again, that I was never going to be homeless once again. And since then I can tell you that I have done the best I could to provide for, maybe, you know, for myself and for my mother. I still live with my mom, so I have had sometimes work a couple of jobs between here and there, and I continue to go to school because I know that if I don't go to school, things will never change.
So one day I was just talking with some friends, and then it hit me. You know, one day I'm gonna be responsible for her. And ever since then I realized that the parent in me came out. I want to give her the best that I can. I want to give her a house. I want to have her own space. I want her to be happy. And I want to do the best that I can at taking care of her. Because one day my parents aren't going to be there. Unfortunately, as much as I would love them to be there. One day they're not. And that's what motivates me. That's what keeps me going forward. That's why I'm still in school right now. Finished one of my classes earlier today. Because one day I'm going to be the one who's going to be driving her to school and back, being her legal guardian. But she's more to me than that. She's my little sister. And as my little sister, I want her to have the best. And I don't want her to just be bored. I don't want her to be sick. I don't want her to be scared, afraid. I want to be there for her. I've always been there for her growing up, and I still want to be there for her. I want to be as close to her as I possibly can. And she's always going to be living with me. So, to my future girlfriend, I don't care who you are, she's going to be living with us one day. I'm not going to put her in a mental hospital or in a old people home. Like, no, she's going to stay with me in my house. I'm going to be the one taking care of her because I love her. She's my little sister. She always has been. She always will be.
I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I was 4 when I came to the United States, and I came with my brother and my mother, and we came to live with my grandmother. My grandmother had just recently become a citizen, so she filed for us like almost immediately, but then my grandmother now has dementia and Alzheimer's, so that's another thing. Like when the government eventually gets back to us, we have to like basically refile somehow because she can't speak on our behalf because she can't speak at all anymore. So my brother, he had like learning disabilities, and then he also was like hyper. So they made him go to a psychiatrist, and of course they like ask these leading questions, and he's like, yeah, I miss back home, I miss my dad, I'm like sad and stuff like that. So they gave him pills for like depression and all these other things, and he was like a zombie. Like one of his teachers told my mom, like, you got to get him off whatever this is, because he's literally sitting in class like zoned out. And he wasn't taking it well. So my mom, she found it best for him to go back home. So He's 27 now. He's good. He has a wife and kids and everything. But he left when he was about 10. And I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him ever since. He has macular degeneration. So he's legally blind. But that's another thing. Perhaps if he was up here, he would have got better medical attention. Like 2 years ago, he got married. And my mom, she did a live stream with her sister-in-law, so she got to see it. But we weren't able to attend his wedding. You know, we weren't there for a lot of things because we can't leave. They're not allowing you to stay, but if you leave, you can't come back. So it's really hard. But I know that my mom is like, you know, I can see that she's like hurt when he says like certain things like, oh, you know, we're doing this, it's our anniversary, and you know, things like that. She's just like, but yeah, it's a strain on family. I'm excited that like when we get our papers and we go back home, I just want to hug my brother. Seriously, I want to meet my sister-in-law. I want to be an aunt, you know, so yeah. I feel like I'm tearing up. I'm tearing up. Yeah, okay. I just feel like, you know, I don't know him. So you have to like catch up. Yeah. I just want to sit down and talk, you know? Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, what's your major? Did you say? Your major is community health, so we talked about healthcare, didn't we?
Okay, so where are we?
Yeah. This picture. Where's this picture? Photo? Show me. Camera, thank you, sweetheart. I tell you, there's a reason why you all are here today. It's a blessing. Are you ready? Point to your guest speaker. Our guest speaker, point to her. Presentation. We are proud of her. We thank her. Thank you. I want come on, present her to me. Come on, throw your hands out there. And you throw your hands up. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Hands down.
I've always had this tendency of like apologizing in spaces where I don't need to, and I realize it's not necessarily just me. I think it's a huge thing that women do, where sometimes we just step back and let other people take over. So being able to be like, to voice my opinions and be like loud, and not necessarily, well, I'm an introvert in every in every aspect of it, but to be like, yeah, I can take this space and not be ashamed or apologetic about it. I've noticed that a lot of people in the social justice movements are women and femmes, and it's like, wow, we have so much power. And so it's really great understanding that I can draw from other people who've already done it, and other women who've already done it, and it's like, yeah, we can do it. We've been doing it. Social justice is just a part of our lives.
Let's say you've committed a crime. You are not an illegal. People don't call someone who commits a crime an illegal, right? They've committed a crime, right? So, and if you've committed a crime, there are norms, rights, and expectations that correspond to that crime. But it's not like your entire existence is now forever painted by that crime that you've committed, right? There's like a statute of limitations, and like there are processes that prevent a single crime from being used against you for the rest of your life. But that's not the case for immigration. There's no statute of limitations for overstaying a visa or like crossing the border. Just generally in the world, around the world, America is where you go to improve your life and make something better of yourself, to build something. And people just seem to forget that. You know, why are we here? Why are we here? If you ask that question critically, It'll be different for different people, but I think it'll be really revealing. And that would get us above the question of you're illegal, therefore all of your actions, your existence is nullified. Going from that space to something more constructive about what we contribute, how we move forward, and how we create the line that everyone wants us to get behind, you know?
There's so much implanted in being a citizen and having a social, like, people really don't know, seriously. And for instance, when I was signing up for colleges and scholarships, they would ask, you know, were you a FAFSA? Were you eligible for FAFSA? And do you have a social, you know, are you a U.S. citizen? And so that canceled me, even having a 3.0, that canceled me from a lot of scholarships. And DACA doesn't grant me FAFSA, but I still have a social, you know, I still am able to work. So it's really a blessing, you know. I get to help out my family because, I mean, to survive, my mom can't work and my grandma, like I said, she has Alzheimer's. So what my mom did was filed a reverse mortgage. So basically we sold the house to pay bills, and I mean, now I'm able to work, so we're able to, you know, put aside money and we save that money. If my grandmother does pass, I'm still able to, you know, help my family. We're still able to live, but it was really hard before DACA, and now, you know, I give my mom a substantial amount of money, you know, every month to help out, and it feels good. And then, like, the day when, oh Lord, when Trump and his administration and talked about DACA, my mom texted me and she was like, you know, watch the news, and I found out that they had canceled it. And then in March is when we'll find out, us who already have it, what the decision will be, if they'll stop it, take it away, etc. If it expires, like, I can't drive, my driver's license is expiring, it's based on my social, based on DACA, you know, I can't work. So I mean, a lot of my life is based on DACA as of right now. So, you know, I'm grateful. I'm also, like, scared. I don't know.
I think the biggest thing is you have to be okay with uncertainty, because you can't really go on if you're not hopeful. Sometimes you just have to hope, and that's the only thing that you have. So I actually wasn't sure that I was going to be able to go to med school, because some med schools don't even take undocumented students, which limits the pool of schools that you can apply to. And then on top of that, you cannot get any federal loans or any federal aid. So it makes it extremely difficult to get into a school and be able to pay for your education. But initially I contacted a lot of schools to see, okay, so, like, would you read my application, and, like, do you accept DACAmented students? And I remember this distinct moment where I actually emailed my state school, University of Maryland, and they essentially told me that they would not read my application and that they did not take DACAmented students. So for me, that was kind of heartbreaking, realizing that I would have to, again, like, move out of, like, Maryland and go elsewhere. So I applied to 35 schools, and I was lucky enough to get into Brown. And because they're a private institution, they're able to provide me with the financial aid that they want, and that, you know, like, is based on my need. And to bring it home, even now, I'm currently in a situation where if nothing changes, so if the DREAM Act does not pass and nothing like it does, then I actually cannot do residency. So I won't be able to go on to medical residency. So I would have spent 4 years at Brown Medical School, have graduated. I will have an MD next to my name, but I can't practice. So I think that's kind of, like, the biggest thing right now, which is why I mentioned also, like, being hopeful is a huge part of it, because I just took a test yesterday that I studied, like, you know, days for, knowing that very well that could not matter, potentially. It all depends on, like, what Congress decides to do, right? It's out of my control, so I can study as hard as I want, and all I have is hope, essentially.
women powers.
So pushing for a Clean Dream Act is important, but I think the crucial challenge is going to be what comes after that, because a Clean Dream Act is not particularly difficult to like advance, because it is, but it's not. The argument is it's fundamentally these are academically economically productive people, we have to provide them all this other stuff. So that's not that difficult. What is difficult is what comes after that. So for our parents and people who are not eligible for the Clean Dream Act, what are we going to do for them?
The day that we realize that we are 11 million, then maybe something will be accomplished.
We shouldn't neglect the fact that there's a whole 11 million people who are undocumented, that we focus so much on dreamers.
I feel strongly about not using the word dreamer as much as possible, just because it leaves certain people out of the narrative, and we're all equally hardworking, and so I think that it's important to really think about the meaning behind the word and the fact that it inherently implies that some people are more deserving than others.
I don't think that dreamers are more deserving than other immigrants. I just think that just because we can communicate and we have the language, which is what probably all the people don't, I don't think that we're more deserving than others. I understand that maybe in the Americanized eyes we are, but I think every single immigrant is hardworking.
They care about the DACA students who are going to be doctors, lawyers, or are doctors and lawyers, but really, we need everyone at all facets of American society, and we're all contributing.
The real dreamers are our parents, are the people who brought us here. People who've been surviving without anything for years.
What kind of parent would not do anything to keep their kids safe, right?
If it wouldn't be for them, there would be no us. If it wouldn't be for our parents that work 3-4 jobs, it wouldn't be us.
Coming to this country was not an easy choice. Simply put, it was paramount to our survival. I remember leaving friends and family in El Salvador as my sister, mother, and I embarked on a one-way flight to Maryland in search of opportunities and a safer environment than a violence-troubled country.
We do not want to come to this country. Do you think that people want to leave their home countries? No! People do not want to leave. I did not want to leave my family behind. I'm one out of 14 cousins. I miss them every single day. I think about my family every single day. And the fact that I haven't been able to see them in over 14 years, that my mom has watched her parents, aunts, and uncles die through Skype, has watched it. Has watched funerals through Skype. Has been here hopeless without being able to do anything. Meanwhile, we're here supporting dreamers only because we're palatable, because we are more American. No, I'm saying no to this narrative, and I'm saying all the 11 million undocumented immigrants deserve protection, and I'm saying to the American public to please advocate for all of us.
I'm just one of 11.5 million, but I'm also not, because obviously when you think about the number 11.5 million, it's baffling because it's the populations of New York City and LA combined. So if you think about how many people that is and how reductive it is to say all undocumented people are this way, it doesn't even make sense to me, because you would never think about doing that with New York City. You wouldn't ever say, oh, all New Yorkers are like criminals, or all New Yorkers, because that's just false. You know what I mean? And there's so much diversity and contradictions present in, right, for example, in the city of New York, because that's just what happens when you bring so many people together. So similarly, Undocumented people are all over the country, and they are all different races and ethnicities and, you know, social backgrounds, and yeah, it's just confusing to me because you wouldn't say that about a city. So why would you why would you say that about undocumented people? Other than the fact that people use the word undocumented to describe us, I think there are no other characteristics that are shared by all undocumented immigrants, other than the fact that we're human, which is what everyone seems to forget, you know? Yeah.